me. I don't.
It's okay. Don't worry.
I'm here.
Okay. So it's funny. It says on one screen, setting up your webinar for YouTube Live, but I noticed on the actual video that it is already live streaming, according to YouTube. It could be anything. Who knows? Anyway, so this is the second live call-in for the Idea Explosion Challenge Program, May 2020, class of May 2020, midst pandemic and lockdown of varying different degrees. And I'm Mike Monday, and with me, just like last time, are Ardash, who I'm just gonna look on the YouTube video so I can see. So hang on, which way? Yes, no, that way for me. And Luke. Okay, why don't you give yourself an introduction and say who you are and how come you're a Make Music Your Life coach? How on earth did that happen?
Yeah, Luke, I think I went first last time, so.
Got it. Yeah. How did I become a Make Music Your Life coach? I started off with Mike Monday back in 2012 or 2013 with one of his first courses, the Start Now, Finish Fast. And that course.
Can I just ask, Luke, were you in the very first class, or had it been going already?
I think it had been going already, but I don't know. Would I know if it was the first class?
Yes, probably, because I was it was how I make all my courses, is that I do it with a class the first time. So it was very, I'm doing this for the first time, ish.
Okay.
It was the first thing I did. Yeah. So that's okay. I was just interested to know. Anyway, go on.
I think we figured this out one time, and it was like a year after the first one or something like that.
Okay, so it would have been 2013 because I started in July 2012. That time is like burned into my memory. It's one of the most challenging times of my life, like doing all of that stuff for the first time. Anyway, so continue.
Yeah, so did that, and then I was able to start then and finish a lot of music fast, which led me to start seeing some success with my music. I have a group called Bells and Robes, and then basically just stayed on with Mike ever since. Took his style course, or how to make unique music, some of his test courses, and I've been with him ever since. And yeah, basically, doing these splurges and idea explosions really helped me to make better music. And so I'm excited to help all of you and answer any questions you have.
Fantastic. And in terms of your music, so you went through a period of like touring all the time, didn't you? You did a lot of touring, and
yeah, a lot of touring and festivals and playing shows. And
it was just a few months, because you were in the mastermind. It was just a few months ago that you decided to stop touring, funnily enough, and then
yeah, well, we decided to take a year off, and this was the best year.
Yeah, exactly. So it's very similar story to us, because we decided to start homeschooling our children about 7 weeks before everyone was forced to school their children. And I was talking to me and my wife were talking, and we were saying, it's one thing to homeschool your children by choice. It's a whole other thing for it to be, forced upon you is probably a bit strong, but you know what I mean? And also to not know how long it's going to go on for. That I can't imagine how hard that would be. So, and similar for people who have lost all their gigs, and they had all of this, their gig schedule all filled up, and, their money security, and then to lose it all, I just can't imagine. So, anyway, Ardash.
What's up? My name is Arash. I have been working, I'm a DJ for over 20 years, artist, producer. I work under the name Shammy D. And I went back to see if I could find my receipt from working with Mike. And it comes out to September of 2013. So I don't know if I don't think I'm the first class, but because I think I'd seen your ads running on Facebook. I do remember that. So I've been with Mike since then, and through various iterations, like the monthly Make Music Your Life monthly thing. And then more in the past 3.5, 4 years, I've been a part of his mastermind, and we've been working together since, basically.
Great. Excellent. So, and you, I mean, just you write song. I mean, you do everything, don't you? So you write songs, you sing, you
produce, write, flow, vocal produce other artists, and self-engineer, the whole nine.
Exactly. So, and yeah, I mean, I guess let me just ask from you as well, Arnash. What was it that splurging specifically changed about what you were doing, or you know, or how did it improve things, and also maybe even the other side of it? What were the challenges?
I think that the challenge was adjusting to this process, because I was so used to like, I gotta spend 3 hours on making this beat perfect, and it took a while to get out of that. But the other side of it was really, really good, because now it's just like, oh, I feel something in the moment and I can go, or I don't even have to like be inspired about something. I can just say, this sound is interesting, and I can just flush out an idea really quick. And I'm at a point now where I don't have to judge anything. I'm just like, okay, let me just do this thing, see what comes out. I'll listen to it later and see how I like it, or maybe something else can come out of it, right? It's totally allowed. I think I've taken back the creative control of the process.
Yeah, I mean, if you go into the creative process thinking that I must create something perfect, or I must create even something good, or it must be this, or it must be that, or it has to be the other, and I have to be, and I have to be producing, I have to be making music for a certain amount of time, otherwise there's no point, and it's going to take me this long, and all of every single one of those statements is another barrier to actually doing it. So then you have to go to motivation, which is very fickle in everybody. Sometimes you're just not motivated. I mean, if motivation is an ongoing, it's something that changes all the time, goes up and down, then it doesn't make sense to have to sort of rely on that. And also, in everybody's lives, their time goes up and down. Sometimes they have more time, sometimes they have less time. So it doesn't make any sense to make time a requirement either. So that's basically where the splurge came from, was in how can I help? I mean, it was actually from the top DJs that I was helping, who were traveling all over the world every weekend. I was like, how can I get them? Because I knew that the thing that was stopping them make music, because often what happens when, I'm sure people who've been in the kind of club music area, these people just kind of burst on the scene and they've got 5,000 tracks out and they're the hottest thing, and then you don't hear from them at all. They just disappear, but you see them playing at all sorts of gigs. But in terms of the music, they disappear. That's because of the thing I was talking about happened to me loads of times, where I had no gigs, so therefore I made absolutely loads of music. Then that music kind of all came out at once. So then I became hot. And then so I had got loads of gigs, and then the gigs stopped me making loads of music. So then I sort of disappeared again. Now some people kind of managed to get enough momentum in terms of their audience and etc. to sort of continue going up, which then gives them enough money so that they can have time to I'm going to take a break from doing gigs for the next few months, so that I can make some more music, so that I make an album or something, and then the whole cycle starts again. And I was like, this just isn't. It's not clever. It's not really not ideal. The model of the scalable item, i.e. the recordings, promoting the non-scalable item, i.e. the gigs, is just it's the ultimate hamster wheel. So where the splurge came from was me asking the question, how can I help these people? How can I help my clients make loads of music when they have no time, when they have no energy, when they're exhausted, and when they just don't want to do it? How can I help them do it when they're in airports and hotels and taxis?
I've splurged in a tent in the middle of the woods.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And
I splurged on a bus in London,
right.
taking a double decker to my family's house, and I'm just like, well, I got 10 minutes. Let's go.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, one of my clients said to me once when I was coaching him, I was like, "So how's it been going?" He was like, "Well, it's been going great, but I didn't splurge yesterday because I wasn't in a taxi." I was like, "All right, that's great." So yeah, kind of putting these barriers up to our making music when really, what is key is making music every day of some kind. Is it's not, you know, it's where the splurge came from, and I mean before that it came from how I started albums. So I wrote three or four albums in my life, and how I would start them is it was like I'd spend a day and I'd just come up with a bunch of ideas. Yeah, and then I put those things together. I was like, hang on a minute, what did I do then? And that's where it kind of came into its own. It was in fact Make an Album with Mike, that program that I did, because I was just thinking about how I made albums, and I would always start with what I came to call the splurge. Anyway, let's go to the first question. We have Gerald, and I'm going to allow you to talk, Gerald, and then you have to unmute yourself, okay? So unmute, there we go. Hello?
Be unmuted. Can you hear me?
I can. Hello,
Yes.
Gerald.
Hello. I don't know whether you can see me. I don't mind if you can, but
No, that's all right. Yeah, no, no worries. I think it's probably just easier if we just do the non-video thing. I don't think I can turn on your video,
That's all right,
so we
no
can just
worries.
hear you. Yeah.
Well, first of all, I'd like to say how lovely it is to meet you all, and at last, you know what I mean. And you were talking about splurging, and I must say, it's kind of revolutionised what I do. And I mean, I'm 64 years old, so I've done a few things in my time, and nothing has ever sort of had this effect on me. I think I'm ready for it, you know. And as I say, I mean, I was listening to Claude Von Stroke the other day, the interview that you'd done with him, and he was saying about how he bludgeoned pieces of music. I mean, I didn't make tunes. I actually took sounds hostage. Do you know what I mean? And I was going to work with those sounds. I wasn't going to let them go, and they were going to be the ones I was going to use, whether they liked it or not. And, you know, I mean, to do what I've been doing now, it's just a revelation. I'm just coming up with so much stuff. I've come up with more stuff in the last few weeks than I've come up in the last year. So it's working for me. My question, I've been doing this with a singer. So basically, I'll do a splurge on my own, and then I'll wait for the 7 to 10 days before I listen to it and decide whether I want to pass it on to the singer or whether it's in some sort of state to actually pass on to a singer, because it's not like I can just do any old thing. It's got to be in some sort of structure so they can sing on it, because they're used to singing to a verse, chorus, or whatever. So I know you encourage us to come up with our own solutions by looking at what we do, which is what I've done on this. But I've kind of come up with 3 answers that I think would be the answer. I mean, my main aim is to get something. I know I'm not supposed to be focused on quality, but I would like to focus on some sort of structure of it. So my question is, when I splurge, and this could be for the strength splurge, or it could be for the core splurge, do I try and do as many sections as I can? In other words, that would be required for like verse, chorus, bridge, and all the rest of it. Another question, I've got this written down, I better write it down.
So let's start one question at a time.
Yeah,
so otherwise we won't remember. Okay, so I've got some thoughts about this, but Ardash is a songwriter.
Right.
So let's go to Ardash first and see what he has to say.
So the question is like, do I work on multiple sections during the split?
Yeah.
I think so a couple thoughts. One, I think most importantly, it depends on how comfortable you are with your splurge and how long you've been splurging. So if you're just starting off, let me ask you, how long have you been at this now?
I did this the first time when Mike did it in April a few weeks ago. It said it shined a light on the problems. Well, the first problems were me. So I sorted me out, and now I'm back to do it again. And now I'm working on the music part of it, because it's working a lot better now, because I was the main problem, not the music. Okay. You know what I mean? So although I've really this time going through it a second time, I've got a good understanding. I'm quite happy if you say, right, try and go for as many sections as possible. I'm going to go for it. You know, I love doing this.
I don't mind saying that. I just need a little more context around you.
I've got a few other things that go with it, because, you know, the other bit that goes with it, or do I do one long splurge and then take the enter the editor approach and decide which bits I want to chop out and give the singer? See, I've got a few different ways I could go, and all I want to do really is see what you guys think would be the best way. I think they'll all work.
I will answer that, but answer me this first. Have you gone through the leap already? Have you gone through the full process?
No. I originally done something with Mike. I first signed up I looked the other day, 2013. I wasn't ready.
Yeah,
I just wasn't ready.
that was probably would have been start now finish fast. So yeah, Gerald hasn't done the leap, but he's done the Idea Explosion Challenge. And
I'm doing Mission Make Music Your Life at the moment as well.
Wonderful. So here's what I'll say. Because you've been writing, I'm assuming you've been writing music for a while now. So
oh man, yeah.
Yeah. So if in the moment in the splurge you have the spirit to go through the whole song or get through a draft of it, go for it. Like that's what I do now. But it took me a while to get to that point. That's why I asked.
Yeah, I can understand that.
Right. So I wouldn't recommend that to everybody right away. But if I'm splurging and all of a sudden I get an idea lyrically for something, then I'm going to write it down, and I'll even lay down the idea. And then once I hit that point where I'm like, I don't know what else to do, I'll leave it be. I'll export it and go.
Yeah.
So try that.
Yeah, because the other one was as well, is do I aim to say, write two main sections? Like if I did say a verse and a chorus, then if it's a promising vocal splurge that she does on top of it, again, I could go into enter the editor and see what could be done to structure it and maybe take it to the next stage.
So the problem with how you're thinking about this is the word aim.
Yes.
Right. So when, like, particularly when you're starting out with splurging, which you effectively are still, I would say. Yeah. Then aiming to do anything is going to lead you into sort of like considerations that we are trying to kind of separate you from. And as you know, as Ardash said, because the first it's almost like the first stage of splurging is about building an awareness of what you're doing in the process and the differences. So it's almost like we're separating different things. Because everybody tries to do everything all in this was just this one. I'm making music, and it just becomes this whole overwhelming. Exactly. And you're trying to mix and do this and do that, and splurging is simply about just pure, unadulterated musical brainstorming with zero editing. So you're now talking about splurging with a specific kind of end result purpose in mind, and that is okay once you've sort of done it enough, because you start to be able to notice and distinguish when you're doing various different things. So it's almost like a training program, if you like. It's like when I'm not a sportsman, as you may have noticed, but
me neither.
But people break apart the techniques into individual bits, and then you practice that little bit, and that's essentially where you are at the moment. You're just practicing that. So what I would suggest doing, and you can splurge into sections. But at the state, given what you said about the problem was you, and then given where you're at, what I might do is just splurge like normal, and then in the direct listening session, then go, okay, well, this sounds like a verse, or this sounds like a chorus, or this one actually sounds like a verse and a chorus, or whatever. And then, if it isn't enough to give your singer, then go, okay, I need a chorus for this section.
Do another splurge on that.
Do another one.
That's basically one of the options that I gave myself. But you see, the reason why I wanted to run this by you guys is because, I want to do it in the true spirit of the splurge, because that's what works. I don't want to dilute this or go in a different direction and think I know best. I've done that too many times in the past. I want to stick with the rules, do what I'm told to do, and get the right result. Which is what I'm getting.
Well, great. So I think keep it simple for now.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when you have something that you want to give a singer and it hasn't got enough sections, just then do another splurge. And I mean, something that you can do as well to even reduce the aiming when you're doing that is actually say, actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do 3 different splurges. So say you've got a verse section.
Yeah.
So I'm actually going to do 3 different splurges as alternate choruses. So that's again removing the I'm aiming at getting
exactly.
which is the thing
before you can start the song. And I know.
Which is the
and
thing
I
that creates
also for someone like me, just very quickly to say, I found the preset splurge one of the easiest ones. I was the one who would sit there and spend 2 hours just trying to find the right hi-hat. I've sort of gone at this hell and top because I can see how well it works, and believe me, I'm sticking at it. It's amazing stuff. And the mission Make Music Your Life, I'm really enjoying that as well.
Brilliant. And you're a music teacher, aren't you, Gerald, as well?
I was. Whether I will be again in the future, I don't know, and I don't care that much. I'm just enjoying what I'm doing too much, to be honest.
Brilliant.
I'm looking at doing something with this rather than worrying about what I can't do with something else.
Fantastic. So have we answered your second question or not?
I mean, you've answered it all. Basically, you've clarified what I wanted to know. You can't do better than that, really. And I'm happy that I was on the right track. But as I say, I wanted to run it by you because it's very easy to get fooled by your own assumptions. You think you know what you're doing. Or if I've got a chance to come online and actually speak to you and say, is this what I'm supposed to be doing? You say yes, no, or well, it should be a bit more like this. Then that is priceless. That really has been absolutely brilliant. So I mean, thank all of you for that.
No worries. No worries at all. I mean, in general, one of the things that a lot of people who've got a great deal of success, cheers, Gerald. So a lot of people that have got a great deal of success from the stuff have said is that I wish I'd have actually not decided that certain things didn't apply to me the first few times. I wish I'd have just done everything the first time, because often what people do is go, oh, well, that bit, that's not really very important to me. I'm just going to ignore that bit. I'm going to adapt it. But the thing is, in my stuff, because we're talking about the creative process itself, you don't have the information to know why each individual rule or of each creative game is in there. You go, well, I'm not going to export the audio file. I'm just going to listen to the DAW. So because that's not important. And I'm like, that's one of the most important rules. So and a lot of people have said this to me. They were like, it was really good when I didn't follow all the rules, but then when I followed them, I was like, oh, I see, that's why that's there. And I don't tell you why all of the rules are in there up front, because I want you to have the insight, because then it's your insight, not mine. And it's so much more powerful. So I would recommend for anybody who is doing this and who is ignoring certain parts of what I'm telling you to do, just try it, please, because it will make a huge, difference. And if you can then leave it, you could then ignore it later on, if you want. But I doubt you will with any of them, because they do make a big difference. And also, another one is they're not listening for a certain amount of time, until the end of the challenge. That's one that people do struggle with, but I think it's really important. Okay, so let's move on to Jace. You can unmute yourself, Jace.
Okay, I just unmuted it. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello?
Sorry, I didn't say. I meant unmute yourself. Don't mute yourself. That wouldn't work. All right. So Jace. This is one of our leapers we have here. So what would you like to ask?
Yeah, you know what? This might be the most important question I think I've come up with that really hits home with me here. Okay, so
now I'm scared.
No, it's just I think I might have stumbled onto something here that you've been drilling into us for the past couple of weeks regarding splurging, turning off the editor, suspending your thoughts about, is this good, is this bad? Seems so easy to do, right? You just do it, right? But you think you're getting it sometimes, and you're not getting it. You do a few splurges, and the editor steps back in. You notice the editor's there. You try to put them back in their place, yada yada. And I think this speaks to what Gerald was just talking about the true spirit of splurging. This is what's happened here, and I want you guys to tell me whether I'm off my rocker here or maybe I'm actually having an aha moment. So
They're actually very similar. They're very similar things. Those two states.
All right.
I don't think I would distinguish them as being different. But anyway,
so here goes. Just like all the other leapers, I've been doing a ton of splurges, watching you do them online and everything else, and I've had my moments. And I've seen some positive results in the teaching. Yesterday, around 11 a.m., I got a phone call out of the blue from somebody I work with that had some video he wanted me to score for him. And these aren't like big major projects at all. This is just I'm lucky enough to get to do these things. They pay a couple of bucks. And I went into doing the thing that I normally do with one of these videos. I threw it up on a screen. I grabbed five presets, and I started just throwing out ideas with this concept. It doesn't matter what I do, because what he wants to hear is ideas. I've worked with this guy for years. He wants to hear 20 or 30, and he wants to hear them overnight. So there's a deadline. Boom, 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 hash, 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 hash. And I looked over my laptop, and it said Mike Monday's going live with a splurge here. And it's like this neon moment came up. It was like, okay, wait a minute. I think I'm splurging right now. I'm actually, because in this messed up situation, it's like the director that sends me this work becomes the editor. He's the one that's going to say yes, no, maybe, that worked, that didn't work. But me, I don't give a crap, because I am just pumping out ideas. It doesn't mean I don't care about the work, you know what I mean? But it means that I'm not attached to it in any way, shape, or form. Am I splurging when I'm doing something like that?
yes.
Yep.
Absolutely. And the thing that I don't know whether you heard me say this on the Leap call earlier, but I mean, let me ask you a question. Or was it yesterday? I can't remember. Anyway, what's the opposite of careful, Jace?
Careful? Well, it would be the opposite of careful. Would be haphazard.
So careless.
Careless, yeah.
Yeah. So that's what most people would say, and I would beg to differ. For me, the opposite of careful is carefree.
Ah, okay, sure.
Right? Yeah. So because the reason I said that, we said I do. It's not that I don't care about it, and I'm like, no, absolutely, you do care about it, but you're not letting that care impact your creative process, which is what carefree is. It's the difference between being attached to all of your ideas. Yeah. So that's too careful. Yeah, because when you're too careful, you're in a box. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. When you're careless, you're just whatever. You literally don't care, right? So that's being detached from your ideas. Yeah, which is what I mean. It's actually better than being careful, because just randomness means that it does deliver good ideas. So if you are too careful, what I would suggest is just try being careless for a while. When people say, yeah, but if I don't focus on quality, then the end point of that is just I'll end up being a monkey going. I'm like, all right, well, just try it. Why not try that? Because then you're at least letting go of that pressure that you're putting on yourself. But really. But that's being detached. But the third way, and it's not in the middle, it's something different. And the optimal way is being non-attached, and that is being carefree, where you have an enormous amount of care for what you are doing, but you recognize that in order to actually do the best work, you need to not be careful, not be attached. You need to not be detached. You just need to understand that it will happen and it won't happen. And it doesn't matter, because something will happen.
Yeah.
Right. And there's always a solution. So it's fantastic you're working with the director. So you write music for film, TV?
Yes, I do. Yeah. I do short projects for documentaries and things like that, independent films and all that kind of jazz. I mean, but here's the thing I want to point out to you, Mike. It's that I need to learn to apply that to my own music, because my own music and my album releases are really where the core of my career is. You know what I mean? And somehow I think I'm now bridging that connection. Like, this is what this should feel like. And I could take, I got up this morning and I splurged for 3 hours, and it was the first time I can honestly say, I think maybe I'm starting to get this now, because that followed me into the studio this morning. And I was able to recapture that feeling, you know, and I had like 20 splurges here over the course of a few hours this morning. And it was just easy. And I would describe it, the best way I could describe it is carefree was kind of the mode I was in about it. And that's the first time that has happened since we started this program.
Brilliant.
I can honestly say, I
Brilliant.
thought I was, but wasn't really quite there.
Yeah, no, I mean, and there it continues. So, Luke, did you have anything to say to Jace about whether he was splurging with when this director asked him to come up with ideas? And
oh yeah, I was going to say that's I've done a little bit of like score work, and I essentially do the same thing. Just like take a section. You're definitely splurging for sure, 100% splurging. And then, yeah, it's kind of like also the more splurges you do and the more you kind of have in your back pocket, your mindset, it becomes easier for it to get into that mode because you have so many ideas and so many ideas that you want to work on that you haven't been able to, that you don't have a need for good ideas, because it's like, even if you had like 1,000 hours, you wouldn't have enough time to work on all the ideas you already have.
Right.
So, like, I found myself in listening sessions, this is kind of unrelated, but like almost like you really get to the point when you have so many bookmarks that you don't even care if you have a good idea, because you're just like, I don't need it. You're almost you're just as hopeful that it's a bad idea as a good one, because if it's a bad one, it just means one less thing for you to worry about like down the road.
Well, then there's this too. With the director, you could send him 25 ideas, and the 24 that you think are an exact perfect fit for this thing, and the 24 he won't like, and the one that was what you thought might be the worst is the one that he's going to cue in on and say, this is fantastic. So it's kind of like there's no wrong way to do it. There's 1,000 right ways to do it. And it just comes down to subjective opinions at that point anymore. And in that case, how could you guess? How could you bother to think which one is he going to like? Which one? And it's like the game that you play with your own editor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, absolutely. This like, we believe that we can read people's minds who we know. And then furthermore, we believe that we can, which is sheer delusion anyway. Yeah, so that's the first thing. But then we believe that we can believe entire, like a label's minds. Yeah, so a record label, they're going to love this. Who you don't know, who you've never met. And then furthermore, we start to like kid ourselves that we believe that we can read, you know, entire groups of people's minds. You know, the market is going to love this. It's all pure fiction. Right? So that we have absolutely no idea. And the solution to this, so this creates an enormous amount of, the reason that we do that is because we're feeling an enormous amount of uncertainty about what the judgment will be. Yeah. Sure. So and the human mind, amongst other things, is a certainty searching for, or even if there is no certainty to be searched for, creating machine. Yeah. So it creates this kind of scaffolding of certainty. Whereas like, oh, I know they're going to love this. I know that I know they're going to love this. Yeah. In order to move ourselves through the process. And what I've found is a much more effective route is actually not to do that, and actually to be okay with uncertainty. Is to move through uncertainty, like live with it, actually use it as your kind of creative partner, if you like, because then nothing can stop you. Yeah, and that's what being carefree is about. It's like, I'm really uncertain about this. I think it's good, but then tomorrow I'll probably think it's bad, and that's okay. We'll find out.
Well, I feel this week like I've turned a new corner of understanding on the splurging concept. I mean, there's so much more to learn, but I feel like something's taken root now that I can
like it
into a habit. I really do.
Excellent.
Thanks so much for your time.
Yes.
You know, Mike, on the next call, I'm going to ask you about design and discovery on this same concept with the film. I think that'd be a subject to see where that dance lives in something like this. That might make me understand it better, but we'll save that one for when you have more time.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I mean that's a more of a leap thing. So we don't want to get too because that's kind of further on in the process. But thank you for that. Yeah, I mean, one thing, Jace, just to don't get too attached to the thought that you now have this.
No.
Yeah, because that can become an obstacle as well. Yeah. So this I have it now. I don't have it now. Again, could be described as almost like another piece of scaffolding that you could well be putting up for yourself. So there is no doubt that I think you've had an aha, insight moment, and that you have kind of, I would hesitate to say turned a corner, because that would almost say that it's almost the work is done. Yeah, this is just an ongoing process of things just kind of unfold gradually. Yeah, and there will always be, and it's also not like straight up from left to right. It goes like this. Yeah, so I just want to put that out there, because I know I've sort of, in coaching in the mastermind, people who've had, oh yeah, well, this is the answer, and then something happens, and then they go, oh no, because they've created this like expectation that they're now there. Yeah.
No, yeah.
So just wanted to put that out there, just to make sure that you don't fall into that particular trap. Yeah.
I'll keep my eyes open.
I'm not in any way saying that you haven't experienced what you have experienced. It sounds like you have. I'm just saying in the future, this is another step forward, and there are going to be steps up and down, in the future. So.
No, I appreciate it, Mike. Thank you so much.
No worries at all. Okay.
Mike, I got to run here. I have another call.
No worries.
Fail, so I might be right back.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Well, feel free to jump in if you can.
Awesome.
All right. So let's move on to Douglas. And you need to unmute yourself, Douglas.
Hello, can you hear me?
I can.
Very good. The question is about motivation, and it's kind of more about mind stuff. My mind is quite interesting. I've got a lot of resistance.
Yes, I think minds are in general.
There's like a lot of resistance sort of coming up. I'm noticing myself like trying to talk myself out of going and do splurges, and then I'm kind of like have to like come on, like almost force myself to do it. And then I was kind of thinking, there becomes a point. Have you heard of neuro associations?
Mm-hmm.
Where like I don't want to be bringing sort of angst to the space and the music, because then my mind like has a neuro association of feeling that kind of thing. So because I've been thinking, oh shit, I should be doing a lot more splurges or something like that. So I think I just wanted some clarity on, is it okay to start off with, because I'm very early in this, wait until I feel like it, and then you could use like a positive neuro association, and then you just go there and you just feel good. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah. No, so I mean, I think there's a little bit of maybe misunderstanding about the neuro association thing. Okay. Yeah, because I mean, I get what you're saying. However, I can see how you've come. It's a logical route. So I'm not saying that it's anything other than that. Yeah, that okay. So you can create bad associations. So if you're in a particular state, every time you make music, then you'll start to associate that state with making music. Yeah. So that makes complete sense, and I can see the way that you're thinking on that. However, on the other side of it, you can't, as a human being, expect to be in a positive state every time you make music. It's like if you did that, like if I had to be in a positive state every time I made music, I would very rarely make music, and I wouldn't. I mean, I really would. It would. It's not. So it just doesn't work like that. Yeah, and what's more, how you the state you are in at the start of the process, often the process itself will send you into an entirely new state. Right. So either you'll be like, oh god, this is great, woo, it'll put you in a really good, you'll put you in a really good mood, or very often it'll go the other way. You'll start off in a good state and go to a bad state. Actually, what is much more useful is actually because you're viewing it in a gross sense. Yeah. So you're thinking the state when I actually go into the process. Yeah. And that's all you're looking at. Actually, as you build your awareness of your internal state, you will notice the fluctuations in that state are second to second. Yeah, it's a very up and down thing. Okay. So and furthermore, if you're talking about neuroassociations, it is actually possible to kind of consciously create a positive state. Yeah, because at the moment, so this is the other part where the not exactly the misunderstanding, but the missing bit might be for you. It is actually possible to create, like consciously create a positive neuro association with sitting down in front of the computer or standing up in front of the computer in my case, or even walking into the room where you do the studio. I mean, all you really have to do. So if I was to say to you right now, Douglas, bring to mind the best moment of your life. In fact, before we do that, like on a scale of 1 to 10, in terms of happiness, yeah, where are you now? Like where 1 is very, very sad and 10 is over the moon.
5, I'd say.
Yeah, okay. So you're about a 5. Okay. So now I just want you to bring to mind the happiest moment of your life, the best moment of your life, where you were absolutely overjoyed about something. Can you do that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Now really, really go there, close your eyes and really think about it and just put yourself in that place at that time. Yeah. Now on a scale of 1 to 10, how happy are you?
7, 8.
Right. So we've just demonstrated in about 10 seconds that you have the ability to create a positive state. And it's not as happy as you were back then, but it's 2 points, 3 points higher than you were.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if before you sit down because at the moment you're saying I'm not in a good state. So in other words, I am being impacted by a state, which means I can't take action. And I've just shown you that actually you do have a certain amount of agency in this formula where you can create a positive state and then go and sit down. And then that will create that can create the neuro association, as you called it, that you're looking for. Yeah. When I sit down to make music, my state increases. Having said that, though, I think the reason I haven't really kind of focused on that at this point is that what's even better than that is developing the ability to sit down, because you're not always going to be in a bad state. If what I'm saying is true, which is you're up and down like a yo-yo, everyone is, yeah, you're not always going to be in a bad state. Sometimes you're going to be happy, sometimes you're going to be sad, sometimes you're going to be, and it's all relative, some people just generally are more sad and some people are generally more happy, but you oscillate between your base, your middle line, your median, yeah, and so in that situation, the key thing is to think it doesn't matter what state I'm in, I'm going to make music. Yeah. So on the point about on the bit about the motive, so we need to ask you some questions about why you are feeling this resistance, this motivation. So I'm gonna pass this over to Ardash, and he's gonna ask you try and find out from you what it is that is behind your motivation, like these motivation problems. So Ardash, take it away.
What is behind your motivation problem?
Well, no, yeah.
Well, life story.
Yeah, go on. Yeah. No, I was just going to say, let's try and actually, because the thing is, what you think is behind the motivation problems may well not be behind the motivation problems.
So what are you feeling, Douglas, when you approach your splurges?
Well, like a couple of days ago, funnily enough, I can't remember his name, sorry, but somebody said, aha, I've got it. And I was actually experiencing that, like the music that was coming out, if it was like ridiculous, I was just laughing and I was really enjoying it. And I guess I did have that thing of, I've got this is great. And then I think a lot of the situation in the world at the moment, and I'm a full-time DJ. It's my job, and all the gigs have dried up and this sort of thing. So I've been pretty good over the past few months to keep positive, but now it's kind of seeping in. Yeah, so that I haven't really answered your question, but there's a feeling of heaviness about the future, and it's making me feel stuck to move forward and do the splurges. I'm still doing them, but I've just noticed that my mind is creating more resistance to try and hold me back. Does that make sense?
So yes, let me repeat back what I heard. So as you sit down to splurge, there's a heaviness that you feel is stopping you from, well, not necessarily stopping you because you're still doing it, but you just notice that there's this sensation of feeling heavy based on what's going on in the world, based on your current work situation, and everything kind of coagulates into this moment.
Yeah.
When can I ask you a question as well? So what, when you think about sitting down to write, or sitting down to splurge, what is the image, or maybe it's an image, or it might be a sound, or it might be what are you actually thinking about? Like what are the various different things that kind of come in? So you think about sitting down to do a splurge. Is there an image or a word or a voice or a feeling? I mean, we already know what the feeling is, but what I'm trying to get to is, what do you think you're doing? What do you think you're about to do? Yeah, because what's going on? Let me just clarify why I'm asking this question. It might help you. Yeah, so you're thinking, I need to go and splurge. Yeah, so you're defining it as being something. Yeah, and that is creating a resistance in you. Yeah, so when I ask you what is the image or the words or the voice or the kind of situation you are envisioning, it might not be vision, it could be something else. Yeah, you are defining sitting down to do splurging as being something, and I'm trying to figure out.
Now you said that, it's like a chore that I have to and it sounds silly now I'm saying it, but it's like it's a chore that I have to force myself to do because I want to improve with what I'm doing.
Right. So is there anything else in your life where you have felt the same way? And it doesn't have to be music, it's just in anything. Does it remind you, does this feeling remind you of something else that you have struggled to do?
Everything? No, not quite that bad. Like when I normally throw myself in very, I'm going to say passionately instead of, what's the other word? I can kind of obsess about finishing things. Now, part of the splurging is good because after like 20 minutes, I'm finishing things, even though, because it's a splurge, right? So that's the really upside to it. But yeah, I guess now you've said these questions, it makes me think normally how I achieve things is by, doing things pretty obsessively, which sounds a bit dodgy.
No, it doesn't sound dodgy at all. So you've developed a strategy, which has allowed you to do things, which is it's like the kind of pummeling into submission sort of thing. Either I've got to go into this whole hog. So maybe like I think where the resistances come from is partly pattern based. You just that's how you've learned to do stuff. But also it's I think the phrase that you used that is really kind of ringing alarm bells for me. Well, not exactly alarm bells, that's too strong, but just as a little tickle there when you said that, was finishing things. Because you're viewing a splurge as you finishing things. And you're not at this stage. You're starting things. And like the one of the points of the splurge is to remove these barriers, because it's very easy to just make an idea. And I mean, I think it's going to take just a little bit of practice to kind of unhook from the pattern of sort of going at it. I've got to force myself to do this because it's like a loop. Do you know what I mean? It's like, because you might not, in fact, I can guarantee you don't need to, but at this point, let me just, because I don't think you're probably there yet in terms of belief. So you might not have to force anything. Yeah. And the belief that you do have to force it means you have to force it. Does that make sense? Yeah. So what can you think about, like, how can you view splurging? So I think we've kind of identified where the obstacle is. Do you think that's fair to say, Douglas?
Yeah.
Just to clarify, it's that you have a pattern of obsessively doing things when you decide to do something.
Yeah, definitely.
And so that's a kind of pattern thing, and that just takes practice, really. About just releasing that. And the second thing is that you're viewing splurging as finishing things. And don't get me wrong, we do finish things like when we do the splurge practice, it is eventually about finishing things. But what we want to do in order to splurge as effectively as possible is just to forget about finishing things. It's just be in the process. So just now I've clarified where those two obstacles. Do you think we have identified where maybe the motivation or the resistance is residing for you?
Well, yeah, it's my mind not wanting to go into that spiral of sitting in front of the screen for hours and hours trying to finish something and getting more wound up. So it's just trying to protect itself, basically. So don't do that. You don't have to sit there for hours and hours. You can sit there for 10 minutes and you don't have to finish anything. You just have to make an idea. Betty actually asked the question, what should a splurge be? Should it be these sections and that sections? It doesn't have to be anything. It can be one idea. It can be any, I mean, it literally could just be one kick drum. I mean, that would possibly not be hugely useful in terms of the result, but it may well be useful in terms of the practice. It's just to like lower the bar so low that there is no resistance. I mean, Douglas, one of the things that I actually get a few people to do when they're experiencing this kind of resistance is like, you're not sitting down to even splurge. You don't even have to turn the computer on. You just need to sit in front of the computer for 5 minutes. That's what you're doing. Right? Or 2 minutes if you can't do 5, or 30 seconds, or even just walk up to the computer. Right? Now, can I ask you, Douglas, what might be the reasons I'm asking you to do that? How might that help you? It totally releases anything. It's like, oh, that's easy. You go there, you do what you've been told to do in the exercise, and then you walk away, and it's like there's nothing to get attached to. Non-attachment.
So there's
right.
no obstacle. So there's no resistance, because all you're doing is sitting down to write without even having to write.
Actually, that reminds me of Effortless Mastery. Have you read that book?
Yes.
Yeah, that's one of the first stages of Effortless Mastery.
It's like just lowering the bar so low that you can't not do it. But
cool. Okay.
I think it's how it's what you're thinking you are doing that is the problem. And just remove that, to progressively lower it until it's to the point of, I'm literally going to walk up to my computer. That's all I need to do. And I mean, way before that, you're going to find that this so-called resistance just disappears. It's not there because there's nothing to resist. Yeah.
Okay, cool. I'll give it a go.
Don't push the river, it flows by itself.
Ah, good, yes.
Excellent. Douglas, did you have any other questions?
No, that was it. Yeah, thank you so much for taking all that time. That's all good. Cheers. I appreciate it.
No worries at all. I love answering questions.
I may have to cut shortly.
No worries. You feel free to leave it out. But Luke's back.
I'm back.
Fantastic. All right. So, Chris, I'm allowing you to talk.
Hi guys.
Hi. How you doing?
Yeah, not too bad, thanks.
You sound like you're like all over the other side of the room. Could you come closer to the microphone, please?
Is that better?
Yes, that's better.
My question to you, Mike, is be listening to Splurge, and you mentioned roll of the dice in it.
Yeah.
I was a bit confused what that meant.
Well, let me as Ardash is about to go, let me ask Ardash what he thinks I mean when I talk in reference to splurging. When I'm talking about, I mean, I don't even remember when I said it, but I know what I think I know what I'm talking about. But I'd just be interested to know, with Ardash's experience, what Ardash thinks I mean when I'm talking about rolling the dice in reference to splurging.
Just finding a sound and going. If it's I don't know the context you said it in, but I would, the way I would interpret that with the splurge, I would just open, let's say, a VST and say, here we go, this sound, let's go, roll the dice.
Right.
Sugar Bytes plugins, most of them have a literal like dice button that would just randomize all the stuff on the preset. So it's kind of just like letting some randomness influence you.
Yeah. So because that's the thing, letting some randomness influence you is what we think is going on in the creative process and even in the universe, that we allow randomness to influence us. That's not reality. Reality is that randomness is it's everywhere. It's like randomness is it's just everything is very random. chaos rules the universe. There does seem to be some form of an order to it, but chaos is like the universe is essentially chaos. I mean, it might not be chaos to somebody who had enough information, enough data about what was happening, but to people with our data processing capabilities, it's essentially chaos. We cannot understand what's going on. It essentially is random. And the point of a lot of what I'm doing is about understanding how randomness is so important. Working with it, not trying to, again, it's not trying to direct it too much and just seeing what happens. So what I mean by rolling the dice, there's a number of different things. So for instance, in a preset explosion, I don't know if you've done one of those yet, you roll the dice by, I mean, when I'm in, say, for instance, Omnisphere, you'll see me just going, it's almost like pulling the one-armed bandit, the slot machine, and I go through the presets and I just stop on one. Yeah. So there's an example of me rolling the dice to see what sound comes up. But furthermore, in terms of the result, so let's go to the result. Yeah. So basically, just to finish off that point, we want to learn how to not only work with randomness, but encourage it in our creative process. Right? Be using it as a partner. Yeah, rather than trying to force things into this kind of pre-existing thing, because out of randomness comes all sorts of great stuff. But in terms of the result, of the splurge, let me ask you a question, Chris. If I said, I need you to roll, I want you to roll a 6, and if you roll a 6, I'm going to give you £1,000. I think you sound English, so it's probably, let's say pounds. Yeah. And I'm going to give you two options. You can either roll the dice 100 times, or you can roll it once. Which one would you take? Chris. Hello, are you there? Chris, you there? Can't hear you anymore.
Hello.
Hi. Yes. Hi. You there?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, 100
So
times.
yeah, 100 times. Right. So because obviously you're going to get a 6. Almost definitely going to get a 6 if you roll it 100 times. You might not, of course, but you're almost definitely going to get a 6 if you roll it 100 times. If similarly with splurging, just purely using randomness, and this isn't the only thing splurging is about, yeah, because there is some intentionality there. But if you were purely randomly doing it, yep, you are going to get a good idea by doing it more. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Yes.
Yeah. So again, working with the ever-present randomness all around us. Like I mean, I would say that probably the majority of my good ideas weren't my ideas. They were accidents. I mean, not even mistakes. They were random. They just popped up. Yeah. I didn't sit in a room and go, right, let me think. Yeah, I mean, all right, I'm gonna write that. I'm gonna make that come out of the speakers. Yeah, I mean, I've tried to do that a lot, and sometimes it works, and very often it doesn't. But what has happened more often is that I've tried to do something, then something randomly will come, and then I'm like, oh, how about that? Yeah. I mean, how about you, Luke? What do you think about this randomness thing that we're talking about? This rolling the dice aspect of the creative process?
Well, so, I actually was doing this earlier today with I got a new toy. And there's a knob that's basically just like a probability knob, and it will alter like a sequence and kind of in a random way. And so what I did was just let that run for like 2 minutes, then, listen back to this random thing that was created. And then there was something in there that I never would have been able to come up with that was, it stuck out to me. So it's like, by allowing randomness to happen, and you can set up situations in your DAW or music making process that allow for randomness to occur. Like I think there's a MIDI effect in Ableton called random that basically just causes randomness. And I guess the thing with rolling the dice is rolling the dice and then looking at what the roll was, and then being able to set, and then within that, whatever that roll may be, being able to pull out the gold, if you will, and mine away the other things that are there, and then say with that gold, say, what can I do with this thing I just found, versus saying like, how do I what can I do with this thing? Yeah, you got it.
What can I do with this sound, rather than how do I find the sound I want?
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah.
So playing the hand you're dealt. But before you go, Arash, have you got anything to say about the what we're talking about now, the randomness thing, the rolling the dice aspect of the creative process?
Yeah, it's the more you do it, it's one thing that I find that's interesting is like I can take any sound at this point and do something with it. I'm not afraid of it, or even if it's like a whack sound or something that I don't really like this is crap. I'm like, what? Let me see what can come out of it. And that's a skill set you can use, because now anything can get thrown at you, and you have the capability to say, okay, here's this. I think it could be this, it could be that. Let's go. And that's the most important part, I think, of it all. And also, I feel like you have to make some room for randomness, because if you're trying to control every single aspect, like you miss a bit of that magic. And so you can manufacture randomness doing something like rolling the dice. So it's a great skill to have. It's good practice to develop.
Yeah, absolutely. So is that clearer to you, Chris?
Because it sort of brought me on to, I've just started full-time work again. I briefly touched on this with Luke, and I can't always do a splurge now, like through the length of what I was doing a few days ago. And I'm wondering now, that's really put things into perspective, because if I can just go to random, I can maybe get a splurge out in 8 bars rather than thinking, oh, I've got to do 16 bar, 33 bar.
Yeah, so I mean, again, a splurge does not have to be anything. I mean, a splurge could be like, there is not a situation in which you say I can't splurge. I mean, unless you're working like literally 24 hours a day. It's like everybody can splurge. You know, I've got people in the Leap splurging on the toilet, which is quite unpleasant. But you know, it's literally, there is not you always have spare moments here and there, and you can splurge. So you know, because we have these things, yeah. And so there's no, and when you, I mean, it's literally like I've just reduced every single barrier to virtually zero, where it's like there's almost like there are no excuses left. I mean, not that you're making excuses, Chris, but do you remember that there are no excuses that we give ourselves left? Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I'll try that randomness then.
Fantastic. Do that. Have fun. See
You.
what you can do with it. You know, play the hand you dealt. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll see y'all soon.
Thanks.
Cheers, Ardash. Thanks a lot for joining.
Later.
See you, Ardash.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, that actually question, just to finish up that question, I just wanted to say there's a book called Thinking in Bets by Annie Duke. And I think it's Annie Duke. Apologies to whoever it was, if it isn't Annie Duke, and apologies to Annie Duke. Anyway, but it's called Thinking in Bets. And I'm just going to call her Annie in case it is her, but she was a very good poker player. So she was in like world championships and everything. She wrote this book about decision making, and obviously poker players have to make very specific decisions. And there was one particular part of it that she said, which is about the difference between a decision and the outcome of that decision. In that people often will view how good a decision was based upon the outcome, which is entirely incorrect. Because
Right.
you can make a great decision and it have a terrible outcome, and you can make a bad decision and have a great outcome.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so in terms of this randomness thing, often we will think, well, if it's random, then it's not good. Same thing.
Nope.
The decision, the thing that happened wasn't intentional, so therefore it can't be good, and that is something that we need to train ourselves out of. I think it's partly down to the education system that has created this sort of, it's just a really kind of tightly like grasping onto some kind of like, it's almost like it has to be intentional. I have to have been the person at the center who was deciding this thing, and if I didn't do that, then it's worthless, and that is an utter nonsense.
Yeah, no, and
Yeah.
it's like when you develop this this willingness to accept randomness, I think, you know, some people have a creative habit that, like, if they were to go on tour like that, or not have time to make music, it hurts their creative process. But when you have a creative process like this, where you're embracing randomness, allowing yourself to tinker and just listening to what happens, going on a tour like that, and that can actually increase the strength of your creative process. And having less time can actually make you more creative and more innovative, in which is so counterintuitive to the way like we're taught in schools.
Yeah, and I mean, you know, it comes through in, you know, my friends here on YouTube, you know, because they were taught in schools, I was taught in schools, so we teach a certain way. And, you know, I think the way that music making is taught online, and I'm really not saying that everyone else is rubbish at all. I'm not saying that at all. But there is definitely an element of it kind of thinking about it as if it's a school kind of situation. And what I've realized is that actually isn't the optimal way of learning this. You know, we have to do to learn. We have to do to know what to learn. Yeah, we don't learn to know what to do.
No.
Yeah, and so doing comes first, and out of that, it comes learning, but also knowing what we need to learn.
Yeah,
Anyway,
there's this quote, and it's like, it's far better to be able to do something and not explain how you did it than to be able to explain how you did something and not be how to do something and not be able to do it.
Exactly, which is what a lot. I mean, just go on any music production forum anywhere, and you'll see a whole load of people who can explain how to do something, but they can't actually do it. Anyway, so let's move on to Adam. Hello again, Adam. Yeah, so you have to yeah, there we go. Cool.
Unmute myself. Hi again.
Hi.
Yeah, I've been it's been a bit of a slow start, and I seem to have spent quite a lot of time setting things up in order that I can splurge.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I think that it's definitely like at least partly time well spent, because I had an amazing session, I think it was yesterday morning, and this tune just almost fell out because like I'd set up the band members, which is kind of a new thing to me, setting things up in advance and doing templates. But like the last sort of few things that went into this track was just like, you know, I had almost had the sound ready to go, and then it just came out and it was there. And it was like, wow, it's quite a revelation. But I think, yeah, so my question is, yeah, okay. And then, so from that, I've been thinking of different ways I can set up, like different types of templates, maybe for different styles or different, like I've been experimenting with different tunings, so getting into microtonal stuff, which does require a bit of setup. So I guess my question is, and it's been partly answered by some of the discussions that have already gone on about randomness. So yeah, I guess my question is like, is that a kind of approach that people take to splurging, is, you know, spend time setting things up so that you can just go in at another time and create? And you know what, I just like to get an idea of a sort of like, what's the balance between spending time doing the technical setup stuff and doing the splurge?
Okay, so this is a very nuanced question, because it's going to be a different answer for you than it would be for anyone else.
Okay.
Yeah, because what I heard in the way that you're approaching it is, there's a certain let me ask you a question.
Okay.
Do you think you might be being a perfectionist about your template?
Most likely, yeah. I know I'm a perfectionist.
Right. Yeah. So that's where I'm feeling or hearing the alarm bell in my head.
Okay.
Yeah. Because really, having said that though, that setting things up beforehand is a good thing. Things being well set up is a good thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
But what is unfortunate, Adam, and I know it doesn't sound unfortunate, it sounds very fortunate, is that you spent all this time being a perfectionist about your template, and then you immediately experienced a great result. Now, why might I be saying that's unfortunate?
I'm guessing because it sets me up for things not going great another time.
Right, because you were a perfectionist, and then you got a good, again, bad decision, but you got a good outcome.
Okay.
Right? Yeah, no, when I say bad decision, I'm not saying that bad, that wasn't a bad decision. It just, I just wanted to be clear about, you know, the last thing we were talking about. Yeah. So in other words, probably not optimal way of approaching it. Yeah, but you got a really good outcome. So your brain is now going to come away from this going, right, so this is what I have to do every time. And in your question, that was what you said.
Yeah, my
because I got this great.
Now I have to create like 5 different templates or more, have a library of templates, and then I go, right, I'm going to start with that one or that one or that one, and that will inform the track. That's how I've been thinking.
Yeah, exactly. Because of the unfortunate situation of getting a great result out of something that I would say isn't the optimal way of proceeding. Yeah.
Okay.
Let's just call it a bad decision. It's not a bad decision, but you know what I mean.
Fine.
Yeah.
Fine with that. Yeah.
So you made a bad decision, you got a great result, so now you're thinking, well, this bad decision is a good decision. Yeah. Right. So therefore, I'm going to make multiple bad decisions again. Right? Yeah, because and so maybe a more optimal way of approaching it, because again, I'm not saying that setting things up correctly is bad. The question is, how do you know what is correct?
You don't.
Right. The only way you know what's correct,
you know, as some of the discussions have been going on, and I've experienced this so many times myself, is the element of randomness. That's where the magic is. Yeah. So we have to give space for the magic to come in, which is unknown, right? Yeah.
So what I like my approach, and you will see. I mean, if you'd have seen, and I wouldn't expect you to have, but if you'd have watched my live streams from the time I started doing the production through till now, you'll gradually see my instruments and my template developing, changing here, changing there. Yeah. So this is.
Do you use the same template every time? Is it
no. So, but the way, because there are different splurges, as you know, and so some of them require different templates. But essentially, what is happening out of this kind of, I'm going to try this, I'm going to try that. So I'm using different templates, but I kind of have a core bunch of instruments that I use. Yeah. But I didn't determine those. I mean, I did determine something up front. So I knew I wanted to use the D fan because I just love it. I knew that was going to be really, really important. Yeah, and I knew that a piano was going to be important, but that's pretty much all there was in terms of what I was going to start with, and they've remained. But how I kind of, so those were the only kind of almost like intentional things I started with, and then I just went, right, I'm going to try this. And I mean, in terms of setting up the first template I ever did, it probably took 5 minutes. Yeah, right. I'm going to do this and this. Done. Yeah, and then I would splurge for a certain amount of time, 7 days, however long. Yeah, using that template, even if I didn't like it for that 7 days. Okay. Yeah, I would just do it again and again and again, because I wanted to. It's almost like I was running an experiment, and I wanted a valid experiment. Yeah, because one track isn't a valid experiment. Yeah, or 1 day isn't a valid experiment. Even if I don't like it, I just want to see what happens. So I keep going. And then at the end of that, I go, right, so what was it about that I was into? And what was it about it? This is outside of the process. What was it about that I wasn't into? What does that teach me about how I'm going to change this or tweak this? Yeah, so this sound used in this way was really cool. But this sound used in that way just didn't work for me. However, accidentally, I did this, which makes me think about that. Right. So I'm getting all this data from having run this experiment of splurging within the template. And out of that data, I'm going, okay, so how can I change this template? What I'm going to keep, what I'm going to change. Yeah. And then I have a new template. Yeah, I mean, look, I can even show you actually. I was going to take 5 minutes.
So keep going with the splurge, using the same template. And I mean, something I like, I'm only at the beginning, and I haven't done the preset splurge yet, and I'm not quite sure what that is yet. But yes, I'm just, hearing you talk there, I'm just wondering, like, should I just try, with this, one set of sounds, just splurge on that one set of presets every time, or like, I guess there are different limitations that can be added at some point, right?
Yeah, I think you're going to be challenged by the preset splurge, shall we say? And it's going to be good, right? I think you're going to find it challenging, but you're also going to get a lot from it in your particular situation. Luke, what do you think Adam wants to be thinking about doing?
Just picking one of the splurges and doing it a lot. And then like you said, after like a week or so of doing it, notice how it went, and then try tweaking one of the elements of the template or the splurge, and, just making the entire process a learning experience, and just seeing what happens when you do certain things, and then adjusting your path. Does that sound right?
Yeah. I mean, how do you use templates? Do you use starting templates? We haven't actually talked about this very much in all of the coaching we've done. We've never really talked so much about have we? No, I don't think we have. So I don't actually know how you approach the template creation or using them thing.
So I have like I've done so many now that I just kind of have like kind of like my own templates in my head of what I'm going to do. Right now I'm doing one where, well, I just got a new drum machine. So I'm going to use I got the 808 by Behringer, the remake.
Oh, really? Is it good?
Yes. And I've had it for like 2 hours, 3 hours.
Is it right there in front of you right there? Go on. Let's have a look. Excellent.
So yes, but yeah, so like I just, I actually have an Asana task in my own Asana board where every week I will come up with the template for my next week's of splurges. So this week I'm going to use that as like the starting point, a drum machine, and then combine, I don't want to get too into it because it might confuse people, but basically just combine two different styles of instruments that are already in my Ableton set and then just see what happens. Yeah, and then I just make a new one, kind of like what happens in the Leap, where it's like, each week there's a new splurge game. Yeah. Just kind of like iterating through splurge games.
No, I mean, Adam, like what is it that you're trying to achieve when you think of a new template? So when you were figuring out this template, Adam, and then when you were spending a lot of time, I mean, when you say a lot of time, how long did it take?
Not loads of time. I'd say, longer than I planned to. I looked at the clock and it was probably like half an hour or so. Just messing, trying different things out, messing with presets and
okay, right, okay.
Trying to find like a starting preset. So I'm using like I bought Serum a couple of months ago, and I'm basically mainly using that. So just choosing different presets in Serum so that I've got a starting point, a bass patch, mid patch, high patch, etc. And one of the reasons a specific reason I decided on different templates is because I'm wanting to experiment with different types of microtonal scales, and some of these scales have not less than or more than 12 notes. And I'm using Bitwig as my DAW, and it has some built-in support for that, but it's limited to 7 or 12 notes. So if I want to experiment with something outside of that number of notes in the scale, I need to use Serum, and I need to import tuning files, and it gets a bit complicated. And what I'm trying to do is set things up so that I can just load up a template and go, and not have to like go and import different tunings for, across, for every patch, every instance of Serum I'm using. I don't need to go into too much detail, but I'm take that setup away from when I'm going into a splurge.
Yeah. So for instance, the first thing for me is that I'm not in the 5 players splurge. I'm not asking you to pick specific sounds. I'm simply asking you to pick specific instruments.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's one thing which will remove the time. Yeah. Okay. So I'm saying, think of an instrument for the drums. Think of an instrument for the bass. Think of an instrument for the low mid, high mid, and high. Yeah. And so it's like, and then actually what happens in the splurge, you'll see in my splurge, is that often the bass doesn't end up, but the instrument I use for the bass doesn't end up being the bass. It ends up being something else. But it's just as a kind of little model. So you're not selecting sounds. Yeah. It's not that tight. And in terms of the microtonal stuff, the other thing that I noticed that you're doing in the way you're thinking about it is you're trying to account for every possible microtonal scale or a lot of them.
Yeah.
a much more useful way, which will get you a lot further, a lot quicker with a lot less effort, is to go, I'm just going to go for this tuning for the next 7 days.
Right.
And I'm going to make a bunch of stuff on just that.
That's a great tip. Thank you.
Yeah, because it's like
a load of stuff out of my head, and I'm like,
yeah. But I've got to set it up so literally every possible thing that I could possibly do is immediately available with zero effort on my part.
Yeah, that's when you start to like kill your momentum. Like you can use that simple template for like, I mean, more than 7 days. Like you can come back to it, keep it forever.
Yeah, that's really that's definitely what I needed to hear, because I think I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm like, I want to try this tuning and that tuning and then the other thing, but each one might require a different type of setup according to what is supported in the software.
And you won't know what that is until you use it. Do you know what I mean? So it's like you're thinking your way, and I would expect that this is how you probably maybe write music as well. And something that you want
just to let you know, I'm also a computer programmer, so I think ahead a lot, and I'm constantly solving problems, and that's how my mind works.
I've coached a lot of software engineers. In fact, there's a few people in my mastermind who are exactly that. They spend all their day doing that, and I recognize this thing, because it's like the decisions you make now are going to be, like going to come back and bite you on the bum, like further down.
Exactly.
Making music doesn't have to be like that. Like, because it's a much more malleable and flexible thing. You don't really have bugs in music.
Well, some actually you kind of want bugs. Bugs are the
exactly. Exactly. That's exactly it. And when a bug, you can turn a bug into a butterfly, and so depending on what you do, what other bugs you put around it. I was getting very into the metaphor here, but so I think that is something to recognize in yourself, and you're not going to end up in a situation which you can't get out of, and which will mean that you have to recode something earlier on. That's not how it works. You're going to be in a new place which just has other possibilities. And by thinking that you need to kind of create the template so that you can do anything, you're actually ensuring that you're going to be less creative in the session, because you have too many options. Right. You actually want to think about reducing options, on that. And actually, just on a side note, so was I right in remembering that you're doing Mission Make Music Your Life?
Yes.
Yeah. So you've actually given me an idea for the mission this week. All right. So when I create the mission, I think it's is it a splurge week? I think it might be a splurge week. So I think you've actually given me an idea. So when you get the mission this week, you'll recognize yourself in it, I think.
Great. Okay. Thanks, Mike.
Awesome.
Cool. That's really helpful. Thanks a lot.
No worries, Adam. Glad to help. And it's great that you've got the self-awareness to ask these questions and look at what you're doing like that. So brilliant. Fantastic. So Luke, thank you so much. Did you have anything to add at this stage, or anything you wanted to say to the remaining people? No, we're all good. Fantastic. I don't think we have any more questions coming in here. So that is the last live call-in of this class, but I will still be live streaming every day. Bit by bit, I am improving how I am live streaming and trying to make sure that they become a better experience for everybody. I've got a Wi-Fi extender in here right now, which I'm going to be banging my head against, no doubt, for a few hours today to try and get that to work, so that I don't drop out so much. But so come and join me on the live streams, where I will be splurging. But actually, to be honest with you, this time I've been answering more questions and actually splurging myself. So really, they're another opportunity to kind of ask questions and kind of get more of your ongoing questions answered as you do more splurges, because the splurge, one of the things that it does is it creates a lot of questions. It creates a lot of answers, but it also creates a lot of questions, and that's the point. It's really a clarifier of your creative process and the things that you're holding, that are holding you up. I kind of describe it like it's a searchlight pointing at the thing that is holding you back. Yeah, it's like if you're like, whoa, oh, or nearly always that is, and you're like, well, how do I overcome this? Right? I'd never kind of even seen it before, or maybe you were kind of vaguely aware of it, but it's not been so clear. Yeah, because you're not able to overcome the, how do I not think about quality? I don't even understand how I'm supposed to do that. Right, that's where your problem is. How do I go faster? I can't go any faster. Right, that's right where your problem is there. Adam talking about the templates just now. A lot of the other questions, the splurge process really shines a light on why you find it so difficult to finish music. So, and so sometimes it can feel like it makes things more difficult, but all you're really doing is building awareness for why it's difficult, which is a really great thing to do, because once you know why, what it is that's holding you back, you can fix it. You can do something about it. So stay on target, as somebody famous in some film or other once said. And until tomorrow or whenever I see you next, stay safe, stay healthy, stay sanitized, and onwards and upwards.